As we make the transition to a new generation for the PlayStation and Xbox brands, taking a step back and looking at the progress of graphics in gaming can be a fun thing to do, especially with the pace of progress made in games in what may seem to be such little time across a few decades. One such franchise we can track the evolution of graphics of is with the Doom series, which has been around for more than 20 years, later making its way to consoles and even the Nintendo Switch with Doom 2016, whereas in the past a Doom game on Nintendo hardware would have been thought unthinkable. We'll be going over the franchise by looking at its mainline titles and using them as an opportunity to appreciate id Software's work with the change in gaming hardware and enhancements to their artistic vision over time. The first Doom game was initially made for PC computers in 1993. When watching videos of gameplay or playing the game itself, it's easy to appreciate the game's visuals, particularly for both the game's color and the speed with which you move. The enemies themselves are 2D sprites, as are in-game items such as ammo and keycards, along with a handful of environmental elements, while the levels in which all of the objects are found are 3D. Simple as it may seem to us now, the graphics that we do see here helped the Doom franchise create a name for itself, one of gore and demonic fright, where the latter is a symbol of your triumph over the former. The graphics were integral in creating that reputation. The first Doom was a landmark title in video game history, if not just for the first-person shooter genre itself. Perhaps owing to the iconic status of the game, it's hard to devalue the graphics by calling them dated. While they're clearly outclassed in terms of level of detail compared to the gaming hardware that we use today, the visuals still have their own charm. It's much the same way when we think of how people still appreciate sprites from the 8-bit, 16-bit, and 32-bit eras of gaming, as sprites are still sometimes used for fan creations, such as the creation of fan characters or the development of fan games, or even as a template from which original works are made so that the artist can sell their own goods to other gaming fans. The only possible exception to this notion about the iconic status of Doom's graphics may be the way in which blood is sometimes depicted, since the blood sprays we see are just blocks. But as it stands, the gameplay and graphics held up such that they were ported and re-released on many platforms, including the Super Nintendo, Sega Saturn, the first PlayStation, and the Game Boy Advance. It was also re-released on the Xbox 360's Xbox Live Arcade platform. The next Doom game, Doom 2, launched in 1994 for PC computers. Both this game and the first Doom game used id Software's id Tech 1 engine. It wasn't really a graphical evolution in comparison to its predecessor, but the game did feature much larger levels in comparison to the first game. It might be said that Doom 2 helped further enshrine the graphical style introduced by its predecessor as quintessentially Doom, even if future games can render more detail or run more objects. But that's not to say Doom 2 wasn't well received, far from it. Interestingly, whereas the first game originally released episodically, Doom 2 released as one large continuous and complete story. As with the first Doom game, it was also released on the Game Boy Advance and for the Xbox 360's Xbox Live Arcade. The Doom franchise, in presenting new releases, would take something of a considerable break after the second game, while id Software would work on its other FPS franchise, Quake. The next new mainline Doom release wouldn't happen until 2004, with Doom 3. It first launched for PCs and Linux, while also later being launched for the first Xbox. Nevertheless, it would be the next id Software developed title to be released after Doom 2, and it would be nearly 10 years since that last new Doom outing when the third game released. It should also be said that Doom 3 serves as a reboot for the series. For Doom 3, id Software used their id Tech 4 engine, which was also used for Quake 4 and Wolfenstein. The graphics for this game have been widely celebrated, and just by watching videos of the game you can tell how effectively the game creates a sense of horror and tension by contrasts in light and darkness, as players are often navigating dark level sections wherein light is at times limited to attacks either fired at you or by you, any light which radiates from your weapon, or lights emanating from the environment, generally not enough to create a feeling of safety. Doom 3 also marked a full transition to 3D for the franchise, allowing enemies to terrify you even more than they did in past games when they get up close and personal to attack you. An HD remaster of Doom 3 titled Doom 3 BFG Edition was released in 2012, compiling the original game and the Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil expansion pack. That remaster would be the last new id Software developed Doom work before the next mainline Doom title, and another reboot for the franchise, Doom 2016. This game was initially launched for PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4, while being released for the Switch a year later. Between the time of the first game's release and now, one might expect to see some serious upgrades in graphics, and Doom 2016 certainly delivered in that regard. This is the best the franchise currently has to offer as far as chainsawing a demon apart goes. It's hard not to think that there's essentially a gulf of difference between the first two Doom titles and Doom 3 and Doom 2016, even if one has to wonder if the latter two Doom titles are as visually definitive as the first two games. Nevertheless, Doom 2016 is impressive, featuring killing at a level of gruesomeness that stands amongst its competition in the FPS genre, perhaps without competition depending on how you compare it to franchises like Gears of War. Scenes of tearing out a demon's eye, or ripping the jaw off of an enemy and throwing it away, who needs a jaw? Definitely not that demon, seems to suggest an emphasis not just on visceralness, but for stylishness in killing. It's a fair and natural upgrade from simply clicking a button to throw lead or energy into a hapless victim. Having looked at the graphical evolution of these past Doom games, we can't wait to see what's in store for the full release of the next Doom game, Doom Eternal. Not that we have to wait necessarily, as there's already some promotional footage out there for viewing, and what we can see does look both promising and fun. Expect to see this newest Doom title on the 3 major consoles and on PCs later this year. Tell us your thoughts about the Doom franchise ahead of Doom Eternal's release. Do you have a favorite Doom game? Are you planning to buy Doom Eternal? Let us know in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.